not to segue into this, but the big news, like we were saying in the beginning of the show, we have half the Bullet Club. We have Shinsuke Nakamura, who honestly, and I know you don't know Shinsuke Nakamura that well, but I am more excited about him coming into the WWE probably than I am of AJ Styles, if not the same for both of them. I'm very excited for both, but something about Shinsuke Nakamura, he seems like he can get over without having to talk. He's got that Rey Mysterio thing where, like, Rey Mysterio didn't have to show his face. That mask got him over. With Shinsuke Nakamura, he obviously doesn't have a mask, and he's not Rey Mysterio, but he is alike with Rey Mysterio in a sense that his expressions can get him over. The way he moves. The second he comes out and does his entrance, this man is over immediately because of just the way he carries himself. And he is obviously a bona fide star in Japan. To any of the American listeners who don't know who he is, you can do your research on him. I'm not going to spend the whole show talking about his credentials. But this is a huge, huge deal. Just for Shinsuke alone. Now, what worries me is you got Shinsuke, you got AJ, you got the Bullet Club, you got Finn Balor. All Bullet Club people, with the exception of Shinsuke, but basically all New Japan people. Obviously, AJ being in TNA as well. Are they taking this company? Are they taking these people from New Japan to actually make the product better, or are they taking these people from New Japan just to fuck New Japan? Excuse my French on that, but what do you think these people are going to be used? I mean, look, the cream rises to the top. If you know how to get over, you're going to get over one way or the other. But what are your thoughts on these signings? Because I still never heard your take on it yet.
As far as they go, hey, good for them, because WWE, face it, WWE and TNA, they both need something right now. Yeah. They both. I mean, you could say what you want about one and the other, but call a spade a spade. They both need something right now. They both need that big thing, whether it be one wrestler or a couple wrestlers. They need that right now. I mean, but I have to say, when it comes to AJ Styles, I don't think he's gonna. Reading what Vince Russo said online, I don't find myself agreeing with Russo that much, but with what he said about AJ Styles not being ready for the WWE right now, I completely am on board with it.
Okay, explain. Why is AJ Styles not ready for WWE? Knowing his past few years in New Japan and being the face of TNA, which still was on TV, why is he not ready? I'd like to know the answer.
Because he's never been put in that situation with the backstage politics. He's not ready for it.
Why hasn't he been put in that situation? You don't think TNA had backstage politics?
You don't think
ROH had backstage politics?
But with ROH and TNA, the difference is everyone that's wrestled there, even wrestlers that have had grievances with Dixie Carter and being, not paid and stuff like that, they have all said that the backstage locker room, there's hardly any tension there. There's hardly any politicking. I mean, there's politicking, yes, but, compared to what it is in WWE, that's why a lot of the guys stick with WWE is because of the paycheck. But when you compare the two, it's political warfare. And like Vince Russo said, he said, I worked with AJ for probably a decade. Being on both sides of the fence, I don't see AJ Styles as WWE material. AJ is one of the most class acts through and through, and that I know. He's a good man, a great father, a stand-up guy. I was on the other side of that fence. I was in WWE when it was political warfare. And then he also went on to say, I think it's going to be tough for someone like AJ to exist in that environment, especially when he's never been put in an environment like that before. We handled him with kid gloves in TNA from day one. He was a TNA guy. He was always treated that way. He's going into a different environment. He may be the greatest wrestler on the planet, but I don't know if he'll have the makeup for that environment. I'm talking strictly personality. Nothing to do with size, capabilities, just as a human being in that type of atmosphere. And I completely agree with that.
Well, I mean, what about New Japan? I mean, he adapted. New Japan is nothing like TNA. And yes, they're working with ROH, but they're still nothing like ROH either. He did pretty damn well there. And I feel like he's coming in with a couple of his boys as well, and I feel like that's going to help him out. And I also feel like he's been around the block long enough. I don't think he's going to run into too much that he hasn't. Or he's had to deal with politics in the past. He's in the wrestling business for excuse my French, for 15 years or however many years it is. I could be wrong on that number, but whatever. You know, close to it. I feel like it can't be that new to him. It can't be.
Oh, sure.
I get it.
I mean, but that's like playing college ball and then going pro. There's always a big difference. There's always a big difference. I mean, you're doing the same thing, but when you're going to go that next step, there's always a big difference.
He is going to be the first wrestler in probably 6 or 7 years that's going to be able to come into the WWE without having to go to developmental. That can go straight to the main roster, and they're going to give it to him, and at least that's the rumor. So it will be interesting to see how that's actually kind of, you know what I mean? Like they must value him to some point to bring him in that way, right? And the same deal with Nakamura. He's supposed to be coming in without having to hit NXT. Now they may hit NXT, peoples. This isn't me saying for sure. Like it's not like I have the magic wand and I make the decisions or nothing. But at least that's what the rumor is. And knowing AJ with the amount of money that he would probably only go for, I could see him being able to keep his name and debuting on the main roster. I feel like those are always like problems that he was worried about before. But he will be on WrestleMania this year. I mean, it's he has to be, and that's kind of the next thing I wanted to segue into. I did want to bring up the other Bullet Club members before we got into that, so we'll get into injuries next. But we do have
one more thing. One more thing about AJ Styles is WWE needs to be careful with him because he's got a potential back injury.
That's true.
They might be jumping the gun with AJ Styles here.
Maybe.
And as far as WWE's policy goes, he's probably not going to be able to use the Styles Clash either.
Well, he can come up with another move. That's fine. I mean, they did it with Kevin Owens. They made him, they gave him a different move. He was fine. I'm not too worried about the finishing move. I am worried about the politics, like you said. And it's just something that all of the internet marks have been waiting for so many years now. It's going to be interesting, either way you look at it. And Monday when you looked at your computer and you looked at the sites, you saw the smarks going ballistic over this whole WWE took, from New Japan, like right after Wrestle Kingdom 10, which, by the way, may already be pay-per-view of the year.